Okay, so back in March, Redmi had launched the Redmi Note 10 series in India, which went on to dominate the sub 15 and sub 20k market. I mean, we've seen pretty competitive smartphones from other brands as well, but the Redmi Note 10 lineup was pretty much the benchmark to beat, right? Well, it's almost 2022 and we're gearing up for the launch of the new Redmi Note 11 series, and we're kicking things off in this year itself with the launch of the Redmi Note 11T 5G. Now that last bit is very important because in order to achieve this 5G branding, there were definitely some cost cutting that had to be done. So what exactly are those? And should you go for the Redmi Note 11T 5G? Well, that's what this video is all about. This is one from GTR and you're watching my in-depth review of the Redmi Note 11T 5G. Let's get started. Alright, so kicking things off, let's talk about the design here. For a phone that packs in a 6.6-inch display, the Redmi Note 11T is surprisingly quite ergonomic. I mean, it is still a bit thick, but at least for large hands like me, it does feel quite ergonomic. It's not the most lightweight phone out there for sure, but at least I can use it for extended hours without feeling fatigued. The phone is available in a SKU of 3 colors, but I think I like this white one quite a lot, especially those shimmery particles that reflect off nicely when shown light upon. You get a 3.5 headphone jack and these IR blasters that the company is known for. The power button houses the fingerprint scanner as well and works quite fast too. As far as protection goes, you have Gorilla Glass 3 rating for the panel, while the device in itself is IP53 rated for protection against dust and water splashes. Now, one thing that I wanted to specifically highlight is the haptic motor on this. The X-axis haptic motor on the Redmi Note 11T is something that you would definitely love. In fact, Xiaomi was one of the first brands to actually focus upon the haptics for a phone that comes in this price segment. So yeah, it's nice to see that the Redmi Note 11T carries on with that legacy. So whether it's receiving a notification or extensively typing on this, the haptic feedback is pretty damn good. See, all in all, the Redmi series has come a long way in terms of design language, and the Note 11T carries forward the legacy. Nothing revolutionary if you compare it with the Note 10 series, but yeah, it's more of an evolutionary design, and yeah, I'm all in for it. Moving along, we have the display, a 6.6-inch IPS LCD panel tapped at 90Hz. Now, whether you look at LCD panels as a compromise or an advantage is totally up to you. I mean, sure, we have devices under 15,000 that offer a full HD AMOLED panel like the recently launched Moto G31. But then again, that's not a 5G phone. With that being said, the panel here is actually pretty good. And as far as LCD panels go, it's hard to find anything to complain about here, to be honest. The colors are pretty good and vibrant, and the peak brightness is also decent enough. Now, the panel comes with wideband L1 support, so you can stream Netflix and Prime Video in full resolution without any issues. One thing that I do wish to highlight is that there's no support for HDR, however, even for YouTube. So if you care about that, well, it's missing from the Redmi Note 11T. Now, some of you might highlight the 90Hz refresh rate and say that, I wish it had a 120Hz refresh rate panel at the very least, considering it's LCD. And to that, I'll just say this one thing. Personally, I still find 90Hz to be the sweet spot. I mean, it offers the best balance between battery backup and high visuals. Now, speaking of battery backup, the Note 11T does have adaptive sync, so it can switch between 50Hz, 60Hz and 90Hz. Also, gamers would be happy to know that you still get a touch sampling rate of 240Hz. Now, I'll talk about the gaming experience in the performance section, so keep watching. Next up, we have the quad camera looking like dual camera setup here. Right. I mean, jokes apart, we all know what this kind of a look does for a phone in the offline market. I mean, this is pretty much the requirement in the offline market, so you can't really blame the smartphone company for having to include a design like that. So the Redmi Note 11T offers a 50MP primary sensor coupled with an 8MP ultra-wide sensor. Right off the bat, that's a good start, and better than the Realme 8S, which competes in the same segment but does not offer an ultra-wide sensor. So that's good. But how do the cameras actually perform in real world? Well, in daylight shots, the Redmi Note 11T has decent performance, though I feel the shots could have been a tad bit sharper. You see, Xiaomi is known for using over-sharpening techniques on the budget smartphones, and that's noticeably missing from here, for better or for worse. Now, the colors are decent and are a bit on the neutral side, something that I do personally admire. The dynamic range, however, could be a bit better, but then again, we have a lot of smog here in NCR, so I can't entirely judge it. The ultra-wide sensor also performs quite well here with little disparity in the color tones when shifting from the primary to the ultra-wide sensor. As for human shots, the phone does pick up the skin tones quite well, but the texture is once again a bit of a hit and miss. What's not a hit and miss is the portrait mode, because the edge detection works really well here. Moving on to selfies, and I'm quite happy with the details produced by the 16MP sensor here. It manages to highlight my beard quite well, and the portrait mode works very well too. Lastly, low light performance is subpar, with there not being enough illumination, and the phone definitely has its struggles with eliminating the noise. In terms of videos, the phone caps out at 1080p 60fps, and there's no option for 4K recording here, which isn't really surprising. As far as the quality goes, it's decent enough, and I'll let you guys be the judge. Alright, now before we move on to the performance section, a quick word on some of the other things that I wanted to highlight. The phone ships with MIUI 12.5, which is easily my favorite update of the series so far, since all the bloatware that also comes is now fully uninstallable. In terms of connectivity, the phone comes with support for a total of 7 5G bands. Of course, I haven't tested it out yet because 5G isn't available in India yet, but yeah, it's nice to know that the phone that you might be buying is not only future-proof but also will support fast 5G networks when you're traveling globally. So there's that. Alright, so let's talk about the performance here. Now, on my 2 weeks of in-depth usage of the Redmi Note 11T, the phone has actually performed very well. I've used other MediaTek Dimensity 810 processors, but I have to say the Redmi Note 11T 5G has pretty much the best performance in terms of that specific chipset. I haven't noticed any sorts of lags or hiccups anywhere, and the phone is definitely responsive enough. As far as multitasking goes, the Note 11T handles it quite well. Yes, it comes with a virtual RAM feature as well, but I honestly don't care about it. In fact, you can watch my explainer video about virtual RAM here, where I'm talking about virtual RAM and how it works in detail and why I don't really fancy it and why probably you shouldn't either. Nonetheless, even with the feature turned off, the Redmi Note 11T can handle multitasking just fine, so it's not really a necessity. Now, talk about gaming performance, the Redmi Note 11T can handle Call of Duty at a combo of medium and high. PUBG New State runs at ultra graphics and max frame rate. As far as the performance goes, I did not notice any lags here and there, with the phone outputting acceptable performance. Now, the back did get a bit warm to the touch after about 40 minutes or so, but I guess that's acceptable. Now, keep in mind that this isn't a gaming phone, and for that you should look at the POCO X3 Pro in the same segment. Lastly, we have the battery life. 5000 mAh coupled with a power efficient chipset like the Dimensity 810 basically promises an easy battery backup of one full day and night of heavy usage and then some. Sure, you can stretch it to 2 days if need be, but under realistic loads of a heavy user like me, who spends a lot of time clicking pictures, is almost always streaming Spotify in the background, and plays a couple of games here and there, the phone is a battery champ, no doubt about it. As for charging, you get a 33-watt fast charger inside the box that goes from 0 to 100 in less than 70 minutes, so that's really impressive. So, bottom line, is the Redmi Note 11T worth it? Well, there are different ways to look at it, and the answer to that very question, whether it's a yes or a no, will completely depend on your judging criteria. See, if you want a 5G phone under Rs 20,000, this is a pretty solid deal. You have the likes of the Realme 8S and the LAVA Agni 5G, both the phones that offer the same processor but a slightly different experience. But I think I would argue that the Redmi Note 11T triumphs over them as an overall package. With that being said, once you remove the criteria of 5G, the market is flooded with very good options, most of them coming from Xiaomi itself. If you're a gamer, the POCO X3 Pro reigns as the best gaming phone in the segment, and for an average user, the Redmi Note 10 Pro does offer an overall better package. Sure, the Dimensity 810 is a comparatively more powerful processor when compared with the Snapdragon 732G, but for the majority of users, the difference would not be noticeable, and you would be very happy with the end user experience. And this is all without mentioning the competition from other brands like Realme and Motorola, both of which have some really compelling and value for money devices in the same segment. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to what you want. If you want a good 5G phone under Rs 20,000, solid recommendation. But if you just want a good phone under Rs 20,000, well, there are better options available for sure. And well, that was it. If you found this video helpful, make sure to let us know by giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more awesome tech content. Till then, this is Varun from GTR, and I'll see you in the next one.